even though in reality you won't. It's just an odd feeling, like your mind is testing your body to see how much influence it can exert over it. Whenever I drive, I feel like I might do something stupid, that I might misjudge something. And because I have known it to happen before, it is very hard to convince myself otherwise. I don't have nightmares about the accident as I was warned I might. Instead, I revisit it in my daily life, in the context in which it is most relevant, so that every time I drive, I worry I will crash. There was also, however, an enormous life-changing positive that came as a result of the accident. It seemed a fairly minor matter at the time, and it was only really made clear to me by a chance comment my mother made. As it turned out, it was that remark that started to reframe my whole life. It was a month or so after the accident, and I had spent the weeks since worrying myself sick about my upcoming A-level results. One day, my mother turned to me and said, "Do you really think your A-level results matter after what happened? Don't you know you could not be here right now?" It was perhaps the first time that my lack of real control struck me, the realization that this steady path through life that I had laid out for myself, and which had made so much sense to me and those around me, was actually subject to chance. Moreover, that steady path was perhaps not the most important thing after all. Living, I realized, isn't really measured by grades or attainment. I am a nervous driver to this day, but perhaps I became a little less nervous of living. I was less scared to be in disarray, on a path that wasn't calculated and curated, but wild and indirect. I became less nervous to live in chaos and discontentment. After all, if there was a chance of being sent off course anyway, what point was there in living within the narrow parameters laid out for me? What point was there in following the well-worn life paths that so many had trod before? To be honest, after that I think I often chose the path of greatest resistance, for time and time again I was drawn to environments that I didn't fit into. Before the accident, I was looking at life through a window, strangely removed from all it had to offer, slowly growing in a greenhouse of societal expectations, rather than in the wild garden that lay beyond. There are people who have always known they were not cut out for a conventional life. I am not one of them. I was absolutely cut out to live an extremely conventional life. I was the girl next door, and not in a mysterious, elusive way, but in a dull and particularly average way. I was an anxious person who craved stability, consistency, and routine, and the product of an educational system that was very much rigged in my favour. Yet somehow I haven't ended up on that path. I didn't want to create homes. I never put down roots anywhere. I have actively looked for discomfort, and then allowed that to spur me on to the next challenge. I wanted to be unpredictable, wanted my life to weave an unruly path through that wild garden, to write my own future as I went. If life was going to be unpredictable and chaotic, then so was I. It sounds counterintuitive, this desire to be constantly slightly out of my depth, to construct a life of discomfort. It has brought with it many struggles and a huge number of failures. Even so, I would still opt for it every single time, because it meant I felt things I never knew I could feel, and saw things I never knew I could see. Before, life had been about getting through the stages, getting from A to B by the easiest way possible, but without going through any of the turmoil that develops you as a person. I had been ticking off the levels without experiencing any of the action, and I think I knew that had to change. It is all very well to say this, but I do owe the ability to live chaotically in huge part to my parents, who to this day are the calm at the centre of the storm. They watched me flit from Afghanistan to Love Island without a barrage of what-if questions, but with a consistent concern for my well-being. They were, and remain, a constant amid continual change. I owe it to my father, who stood at the top of the valley as I was stretched up to the road.